Alright, so welcome back from the previous video. What we're going to be doing here is we're going to now talk more about the actual logic we're going to need for the game itself before we actually dive deeper into JavaScript. And just keep in mind, I'm assuming you went through all the other videos, so I'm not going to recap everything we did in those videos, but just understand we built the website and did some CSS and worked on the beginning structure of our JavaScript and putting it into a separate file, working inside of brackets. So here I'm inside of PowerPoint, and I'm going to go over the logic of the system I'm about to design, and it's going to be based off of flowchart diagrams. I'm just make a simple flowchart diagram. We're not going into depth with this because there's a lot to learn about flowcharts. We just need the bare minimum about flowcharts. And if you go onto Google and you look up decision charts or templates, you'll see something like this pop up, and this basically is a style of flowchart. With this, let me see. This one won't pop up, but you can pretty much see what it is here. If I can pull up a more clear version. There we go. So you see we have this start here, and that could be any kind of start. It actually is not talking about JavaScript or any sort of programming language. It's just talking about the process that needs to take place in your application. So the user starts here, then it looks for lost items, and then it goes to this question. And the question is, did you find the lost item? If you didn't find the lost item, you go here. It asks another question. Do you need it? And if you say yes, you keep looking for it. Now you can see how the logic will keep you going in this loop until you find it, and if you found it, you stop looking. So we want to be able to produce something like this, but for our game. So we're going to make this as simple as possible. I'm going to go here to shapes, and if you look down into the shapes, you'll see that right here we have this flowchart category, and we're going to choose the second one. We're going to drag that out, and then we're going to probably have a decision, most likely. So I'm going back to the insert tab, over here to shapes, and I'm going to go ahead and drag out this decision right here. We can change the style of this by going up here inside the format tab, over here to the styles, and choosing a different style if you want, or you can right click on something and go to styles and then choose the different style that you want. Either way is fine. This one right here is going to be the start, and then we're going to go down here, and this is going to ask the question, it's just going to ask the question end of game. Now, we're keeping this as short and as simple as possible. We're not trying to get into a whole bunch of detail. We're not going to detail every single move right now. We just want to understand the process of creating some sort of logical sheet that helps us program when we're actually programming it. So we hit start. Is it the end of the game? If it is the end of the game, then we can go back to the start, or what we can do is go to the end. Okay. If it's not the end of the game, then what we're going to do is we're going to go to choose direction. All right, so if I start, I go here, and the question is it the end of the game? It's not the end of the game, we go over here. If it is the end of the game, we go to the end game UI. If it's not the end of the game, we choose the direction. Now, we'll choose whether it's north, east, south, or west. Once we choose the direction, we just basically go to that direction. Go to and then we're going to ask the question, did they die again or not? So let's put all this stuff together. I'm going to go here to insert, go here to shapes, and I'm going to drag these arrows, and these arrows are going to go from one shape to the next, and I'm connecting them through the little dot, so when I move it, it moves with the shape itself. Back here to insert, or I can go here to the format tab, and over here in the format tab I have this insert shapes, and then I can grab them from there also. This is going to go to there, and this one's going to go here. Then I'm going to grab this one and bring it down here. Now, I could, wait, let me redo that one. I could grab this one and bring it all the way around here, but a better way to do that when I'm running out of space where I need something to come all the way around is to grab a circle, and I'm going to call this A. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to point the arrow directly to A here. And now I can move A around. And then I'm going to copy A, bring it over here, and then put the arrow from A to this here. So we can see the arrow going in that direction. So now let's play our game really quick. We press start. We check to see if it's the end of the game. If it's not the end of the game, if it is the end of the game, we go to this UI. But we need to know what's yes, what side is yes, and what side is no. So the way we're going to do that is we're just going to go ahead and grab ourselves a text box. And we're going to click it there, and we're going to just type yes. And this is going to go right on top of that. And I'm going to duplicate that by hitting Control C, Control V, and over here it's going to say no. All right, so we start off our game, check to see if it's the end of the game. If it is the end of the game, we got this backwards. I have it backwards, so we're going to do this. There we go. And this is why you walk through, because sometimes you're just doing stuff and you kind of, you might know what you're thinking, but you actually did something different. So that just happened to me. So here we have, is it the end of the game? I hit yes, and then it goes to the end of the game. Or if it start and then it's not the end of the game, I choose a direction, go to the new room, and then from A, I go here and ask, this is the end of the game again. So every room I go to, I can check to see if it's the end of the game. If it's not, you just keep going to rooms. Now, the other question I have here is not whether it's the end of the game, actually, because actually we're not going to go all the way to the point of making the game end, but I really believe instead of the end of the game, I really think I want to ask the question, is the door locked? That's the question I think I want to ask. So that way, when we get to each room, if the door is locked, we don't go to the next room. If the door is locked, we remain in that room. So if the door is locked, we'll stay in the current room. All right, so if the door is locked, we stay in the current room. If the door is not locked, we choose the direction and we go to the new room. And actually, we can cut this one out if we want it. We could just say go to the new room and then check and see if the door is locked. Again, choose a direction. Okay, so, and I think we can make this more logical. And this is why we do this, so we can go through the logic, okay? So we want to be able to mix things up a little bit and make sure it's logical based off what we intend to happen in the actual game. This is why you don't wait till you produce the game before you start doing something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this down a little bit to make some space. Now I think this is more logical for what I intended. I'm going to go to format, and then I'm going to drag this arrow here and drag this arrow here. Make another arrow from here to there. And now I can take these here and drag it this way. Put another arrow here from here to there. All right, so now let's look at the logic of this. I start, I choose a direction, I check and see if the door is locked. If the door is locked, I stay in the room, maybe give a message. If the door is not locked, I go to the new room, and perhaps this I can add the fact that I'm going to give a message here. Room is, or door is locked. There we go. All right, so now we have the logic down. Now we can just go ahead and start on with actually programming this logic using JavaScript. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at how we can achieve this in JavaScript. Go ahead and minimize that. Make sure you save your file. Now we're back inside of brackets. And I'm going to move this over here so we can see what we have and exactly how this stuff is going to work. So right here is my HTML. I'm going to open up my cave.js. You should have that from last time. And I'm going to remove this test. That's the first thing I want to do. And I'm going to save that file. And I'm going back to my HTML. And I'm going to remove this inner JavaScript here. That inline JavaScript. And I'm going to hit save. I'm going to go back over here and refresh my page. Click it so I can see that nothing is working. Perfect. Go back to my JavaScript and I'm ready to work. Now, in order to get started in JavaScript, we're going to need to be able to create a function that actually starts immediately after the website has been done loading. And to do that, we just type window.onload. And then from there, we give it a function. So this is how the function looks here. And basically all I did was I open and close these brackets. And then from there, I make some space. Now, I always open and close my brackets first because I don't want to make the mistake of forgetting to close my brackets. So this is why I always open and close, even though I'm going to put something in between these two brackets. All of our code has to go in between this function here. So I'm going to put my cursor right between these two brackets, and I'm going to click enter a bunch of times so that way I have some space so I can recognize that this is where everything is going to go. Now I need to start creating my variables, and basically I have a north door, an east door, a south door, and a west door, and I want to go ahead and grab those the way we learned in the previous video of grabbing things, and we're going to put it inside of a variable so we don't have to keep typing it out. But the first thing I need to do is create a note here, almost like it's just a comment. And comments don't get compiled. They're just notes to yourself, to your team, to kind of remind you of things or to make the code a little bit more clear. So in order to do comments, a single line comment is a double slash, and then from there you can type whatever you want. And I'm just going to type declare variables. So that way my team knows and I know that this is the section that I'm declaring variables in. And I can also go double slash and just type a line here to separate the code that is declaring the variables. And then below here I can put my code. Now remember, this is not going to compile. It's just a comment for you, your team, or whoever. So in order to declare a variable, I started off with the var and the variable name. Whatever the variable name you want, that's the variable name. It doesn't really matter. But you want to make it something that you can remember and something that relates to these things here. I'm going to consider these divs buttons. Even though they're not buttons, this is a button. But anything you click, in my mind, I'm considering it a button in this game. So I'm going to call this variable btn north. So btn stands for button, and that's going to start in lowercase, which is called camel casing because the next word starts in uppercase, and that's going to equal document. And you guys remember this from the last video. We grab the document, then we grab the get element by ID, and then we call the ID that we want. And if you remember here inside of the HTML, the first one that I'm going to be getting right now, I'm starting off with the north, the top one. So the ID for that is north. And this is why I gave them IDs that make sense. So that way I don't confuse myself when I'm writing the code here. I try to keep everything consistent. So that's going to be north. And then basically all I need to do is the east, the south, the west, and the title. Where is that? Where's my title? Well, maybe I have to make a title, or these LBLs, and I'll get these later, or this info box. I can get those later, but I'm probably going to end up adding a title. But we'll just get the caves right now. I mean the doors for right now. Go back here, and I'm going to type the rest of this, and I'll be right back. So here's what we have here. As you can see, it's basically the same as what we had before. I did add this LBL title here, even though I don't have it in my HTML. So I'm going to go here to my HTML and I'm going to change a few things here because I know for a fact I'm going to need a title here. So I'm going to go right here to this P tag and I'm going to change this P tag from a P tag to more like a div. And I'm going to take that P, change it to a div. I'm going to give it a class of this LW class. I'm going to remove this here because I want this to look a little bit different than what it is here. So that way I have a little bit more control. And that's going to be the cave. And then because I'm going to want to change this part depending on the room. It's not always going to be the den. So I'm going to leave the cave, but I want this part to change. So I'm going to stick this in its own sort of div, but it's called a span. And I'm going to encapsulate this in that span. So I'm going to close the span over here. And now in this span, I'm going to give it a class of LW. And also I'm going to give this the LBL title. Make sure you spell it correctly. Now, because this is a div, I have to close this P off. I'm no longer using the paragraph tag. I'm using a div. And now I can go ahead and save that. And now the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change these buttons here. And I really want to give these buttons an ID for now. So I'm going to add some buttons. So that's why I'm saying buttons. I'm going to add these other buttons here. And I'm going to call this button ID. Even if I don't plan on using it right now, I should make sure my HTML is ready to go. So I'm going to call this btn grab. So I don't have to keep coming back and forth between these since I already know how I want this to look a little. So I'm going to copy this button, paste it, and paste it. So I'm going to want this button grab. I'm going to want this button maybe drop. Perhaps this would be something like talk. And then I can add another one, maybe called fight. There we go. And this info box, I can put something in there and going to be you are currently in the whatever room. Let's just put garden for now. How about I just put den? Okay, so we're settled with the HTML. Let's go back to the JavaScript. Now here in the JavaScript, we have everything we need here. I'm just going to save this. I'm going to go back here and refresh this just so I can see these buttons here and I can see the stuff that I wrote there and I can see the changes that I have here. All right, so now I have access to these buttons. The next thing I want to be able to do, since I have everything in line, I didn't really grab these here because I'm not really ready to use these so much. So I want to get these down first. So the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and maybe grab that info box and then maybe create some sort of message like you are currently in the room. Now, I don't want to put you're currently in the cave, you're currently in the den. I want to put you're currently in the, and then I can put this in a separate variable that changes every time the person changes the room. So what I'm going to do first is go ahead and type out this message. I'm going to create a variable. That variable is going to be called message bar, and that's the message. I'm going to use that for every time I want to put a message. So I'm going to use this variable. I'm just creating this message bar for every time I want to create a message, and that's going to be the document. That get element by ID, and that's going to be the info box. Remember, the info box, when I go to my HTML, is this info box here, and that's what I'm using. So that's why I'm putting that inside of here. I didn't put it up here, so I have it down here. And perhaps I can even just put this up here since I'm declaring all the variables here. That's probably a good idea. When I want this other variable, it's going to be called message. Let's say like, and then I'm going to say, you are currently in the okay, and I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna make some space there, and I'm gonna close this off because I'm gonna be adding to this variable every time the room changes. This is why I don't want to finish off that variable name, because I'm gonna be changing it. So now that we have a lot of our main variables down, now we want to start connecting to these button clicks here. And I think this video is going on too long, so what we're going to do is we're going to continue or finish off the rest of this by getting the button clicks and then going ahead and putting the logic that we think we should have in this in the next video. So I'll see you guys then. Make sure you share, make sure you subscribe, make sure you leave your comments in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.